Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Board Games Unlocked, and Devin and I are finishing Middara, Unintentional Malum Act 1. It's finally here, I think. We just defeated the Shadow Lord, which was pretty cool. Went really well. Nightingale had full health, didn't even get hit once at all. Everyone else kind of got ganked, but
Mostly did full heal after eating all their health.
I don't remember any of that. Yes, so we will continue to Visage after fighting the Shadow Lord. Boom.
Visage.
Or Visage.
The Shadow Lord's robed form began to deflate in front of them, like a punctured balloon. Bright blue light escaped from within, draining out onto the floor and filling the room with a faint glow. Zeke watched the others gather around the fallen body, weapons still raised in nervous hands. Zeke didn't care. He ran right past them, over to where Justice still lay. She hadn't moved at all. He dropped to his knees beside her, jostling her shoulder with one hand. Nothing happened. She didn't respond at all. Her skin was icy under his grip. "Come on, Justice! After all that, you can't be dead!" He pulled one of her wrists free, feeling for a pulse, and found it. She was breathing, too, so faintly he hadn't noticed at first. "Huh?" Justice blinked, opening one eye. The warmth rushed back into her skin, and her breath fogged the air in front of her. Her eyes fluttered, barely open. In front of Justice, her entire vision was taken up by Zeke's concerned face. "Zeke, you came for me?" she muttered.
Yeah, I did.
"Yeah, of course." Zeke smiled and pulled her into a hug. Justice looked over his shoulder. "Where is he? The Shadow Lord." Zeke pulled away.
Fucking dead.
"He tried to stop us, but we weren't having it. We don't leave friends behind." "You killed it?" Justice sat up, stretching with both arms in turn. "How could... That's not possible." "That's what everyone thought." Zeke rose to his feet, offering his hand so Justice could do the same. Even though she hadn't been killed, Justice looked a bit haunted. Her eyes were wide and darted around the room. Zeke stood nearby watching her. "Are you okay?" Zeke asked reluctantly. "No, she stuttered. "You couldn't have killed that creature. You don't know what it does to people, Zeke." She glanced around her back. Zeke watched her panicking and wanted to hug her again, but thought better of it. Justice looked scared and paranoid. Sweat was rolling down her face, and she had her arms wrapped around her own body. Justice stood still, shaking and glancing around periodically. "You don't know," she repeated. The room around them was getting colder and colder by the moment. Zeke could see Justice's breath in the air. His own breath was fogging the air now, too, and he started to shiver. "Zeke!" Justice suddenly called. Her eyes had gone wide, and she moved to hide behind Zeke, grabbing at his shirt. "He's coming!" Zeke turned just in time to see the corpse of the Shadow Lord begin to rise again. The blue fog that had gathered around them flowed back towards it, filling the robe and inflating it back into a roughly human shape. It rose, taller and more imposing than it had been before they fought. "No way! It isn't dead? How couldn't it be dead?"
Round two.
Zeke said in a panic, looking up at the creature as it towered above them. "Weapons made by mortals cannot hurt me, though your effort is certainly commendable," the Shadow Lord hissed. His voice seemed to come from all directions, echoing in the chamber. The group prepared to fight again, but the creature only chuckled. All around it, things began to move. Every single corpse in the room, every skeletal figure, every half-rotten adventurer, all moved together. They clambered over each other, rising to their hooves or feet or claws. Many picked up their fallen weapons, as decayed as their owners. An army of the dead stood in all directions watching them. The Shadow Lord's laughter boomed so loudly that Zeke covered his ears. Justice hid behind him, confused and scared. "Well, wasn't that entertaining?" The Shadow Lord's voice was so loud it shook the earth above them. Several small bits of stone came loose, tumbling down around them. "I've not had so much fun in decades." It turned on Zeke and Justice. "Perhaps I will not kill you after all. I'm thinking you might be more amusing to me alive, for now." The Shadow Lord moved closer to Justice and looked down at her small, quivering body. Though I must admit, the creature sighed, I'll miss your presence, Justice. Justice began crying, and Zeke couldn't take it anymore. He stepped in and held her. She had no wounds on the surface, but it was obvious that her time spent here with the Shadow Lord had done unseen damage. Leave with your lives, the Shadow Lord finally said, waving a hand. It's the least you've earned. They had everything they'd come for, and the Shadow Lord was offering them a way out. But Zeke couldn't help but feel like he wanted to try and kill him again anyway.
We continue to My Time Here Is Over. All the way down, down, down to Goblin Town. Where is it? There we go.
My time here is over. Something rumbled far above them. Dust and rock began falling from the ceiling, crashing all around them. The Shadow Lord looked up, as though only mildly interested in the terrible noises being made from somewhere far away. Well, isn't that interesting? It looked down at them all, apparently locking its attention on Nightingale. It seems the denizens of this prison have discovered they are no longer trapped. I expect they will want their revenge on Greyhaven for locking them down here with me for so long. A massive chunk of the ceiling fell on the other side of the room, shattering with a crash. It will be a massacre. The perfect chance to add souls to my service. It nodded to Nightingale in a mocking gesture of respect. Goodbye, young one. I suspect we will never meet again. The Shadow Lord vanished with a flash of bright blue light, taking every ghost with him and plunging the room into darkness.
Bitch!
They were alone, deep within the eyrie. We need to get out of here, Shayla shouted, as another huge chunk of stone came tumbling down. This one landed in front of the door they'd used to get inside, burying it with a landslide of dirt. Damn, we can't get trapped down here. What do we do? Damocles yelled as he sheathed his weapon, preparing for a full-blown sprint. Surrey! Nightingale yelled. She can find us the way out.
Do we have the story flag a new owner? We do not. So we continue to I'm safe.
New owner.
All right. Lots of reading. I'm really hoping it's just story stuff from here on out. I don't want to do another fight. There we go.
I'm safe. Surrey could lead us out, Rook agreed, raising his voice so he could be heard over the collapsing cavern. He reached out to her. Surrey, can you hear me? Surrey appeared a second later, little more than a purple mote of light. She brightened as she saw Rook. Suddenly she was spinning circles around him. Can you find another way out, like you did in the White Spires? Rook asked, urgent. This place is coming down on us. You're alive! Surrey spun, her form moving through Rook's body and coming out the other side. Of course, she grinned. You humans always get so lost I've been keeping track of your path, just in case you asked. Surrey bobbed up and down in the air before zipping off towards the throne, and down the passage beyond, leaving a glowing trail behind her. Rook felt drained, completely exhausted from everything they had been through, but even through the pain, they had to push on. They got what they needed, and escape was the only thing on his mind now.
Okay, continuing on. I gotta scroll like all the way down.
I know, it's annoying it isn't.
It is, yeah. So then we go back to the surface.
Back to the surface. They ran with every last desperate drop of energy they had. It seemed as though the Shadow Lord's magic had been the only thing holding that ancient room around his throne together. With its master gone, thousands of years of dark history were catching up with it. Whole floors gave way behind them. Ceilings crumbled, and caverns collapsed under the weight of the earth above. Time seemed to slow to a crawl as they desperately ran. They were aware of nothing but Surrey's light ahead of them, guiding them past potential dangers and avoiding the worst concentrations of monsters. The further they ran, the more familiar the passages became. Ahead, muted rays of light broke through the gloom. They had finally made it. Together, the group climbed through the exit of the eyrie. Luckily, anything that might have been trapped below was either escaping through a different exit or had already come this way. Nightingale collapsed on the nearest patch of grass, sucking in air and grasping at her chest. Her lungs burned with each shuddering gasp. Soon after, Zeke followed, collapsing nearby her, breathing just as hard. Shayless's face came into her view, and Nightingale knew what she was going to say. We can't rest long. We need to keep moving. Greyhaven needs to be warned. Shayless looked tired, but Nightingale could tell that Shayless was driven by something else, something that Nightingale could relate with. The desire to protect her friends. Somewhere back in Greyhaven, Abigail and Tyrael would be fighting for their own lives, and Shayless was worried about them. Okay, Nightingale panted and slowly rose from the patch of grass she was on. Zeke moaned, then got to his feet, and the group continued their pace.
Okay, do we have the story flag a helping hand? No, so we continue to another thing. Okay, where are we at? There we go.
Greyhaven revisited. There was something very wrong with the forest. Zeke noticed it before they had even lost sight of the Eyrie. What had been a vibrant and thriving ecosystem had suddenly changed. Anything that wasn't a sturdy tree had been completely trampled, obscuring the proper trail. Zeke wasn't terribly good at reading tracks, but he didn't need to be to know that these weren't normal animals. Middara's wildlife might be strange, but they didn't usually rip huge chunks out of trees, light random fires, or shatter boulders as they passed. They moved closer and closer together as the trek progressed. Yet as darkness fell, the danger of the forest never manifested. Zeke didn't hear the call of birds, the chirping insects, or even the territorial bellows of predators. He heard nothing but their own footsteps. They found carcasses too, animals torn to shreds and picked to the bone. Shayless cursed louder with every new corpse they found and refused to let them stop to rest. Our worst-case scenario came true, she eventually said. Everything's headed straight for Greyhaven. Maybe they all went the same way out of herding instinct or something, Nightingale suggested. Once they get to Greyhaven and see how well defended it is, they'll break. Greyhaven isn't well defended, Patrick said matter-of-factly. Why should it be? It had the Aegis Stone to keep everything dangerous locked away. Only ancient magic could break a shield like that. Most of the city's guards are peacekeepers. They're totally unprepared for something like this. Zeke wished very much for Nightingale to be right, but as the city came into
Patrick's
view,
always right.
it was very apparent that she hadn't been. This was not the same peaceful city he had seen from his window in the Amaranthine. The light of glowstones had been replaced with raging fires. Bestial roars mingled freely with terrified screams. Shit, Shayless muttered. They're tearing this city apart. This is horrible. Nightingale covered her mouth, her eyes dancing across the scene. People were screaming, running, fighting and dying. Creatures were moving in packs through the streets. Small pockets of violent engagements could be seen scattered in various districts. We have to help them, Nightingale yelled, drawing her weapon and pointing at a group of civilians who were nearby. They screamed as a soul butcher chased them down. She began stumbling down the slope, towards a nearby street when she was stopped. Wait! Shayless caught her sister by the arm, yanking her back. You're in no shape to be fighting. Plus, we can't fight an army of monsters by ourselves. There's hundreds of them. We need to get to the Amaranthine. Help Abigail and Tyrael organize the defense. We won't be using the gondolas, Patrick said, pointing. Zeke followed his gesture to the nearest gondola tower, which had collapsed, taking the cables with it. Looking across the city, he couldn't see any of the cables still standing. There's no way we're going to get to the castle without them, Damocles yelled, spinning around, his own weapon drawn. I could fly up there, Remy began. Ask for them to send... A sudden explosion cut Remy short. The ground a few feet in front of Zeke exploded, throwing him backward in a wave of dirt and rock. He shielded his face from a fierce blast of heat as a creature surfaced in front of him, clawing itself out of the ground itself. It was a massive serpentine form that seemed to be made of living magma and covered with crystal protrusions. It rose up from the ground, towering higher and higher. Its eyes were fixed on Zeke, a pair of dark orange pits. Zeke scrambled to his feet, backing up as fast as he could.
Lights a
Just
cigarette.
as the monster was bearing down on him, an explosion shook the air, loud and violent. Zeke covered his face a second time, turning his back to the monster. Several large metal balls hit the monster in quick succession. Zeke opened his eyes in time to see several gaping holes in the monster's side. Its blood was like lava, causing the magma from the wound to splash onto the roofs of nearby buildings, setting them aflame. The beast let out a screech and toppled to its side, sending molten rock splattering through the air like an erupting volcano. Even as he watched, Its body cooled and hardened. A familiar airship soared overhead, smoke still rising from its cannons. It stopped, floating in the air above them, and Effie Grand leaned over the edge. The oppressor might not be much compared to some airships, but Effie hadn't skimped on the cannons. The guns had devastated the monster that had threatened them. Oi! Effie yelled, looking down at them. You're in a bit of a jam down there.
It's my new girlfriend.
Not a good time to be down in the city.
This is girlfriend number 2.
Please, Zeke shouted back, nodding frantically. Though the lava creature was dead, the explosions caught the attention of more monsters. You got it, Effie said enthusiastically, tossing a rope ladder over the ship's railing. Quickly now, some of these beasts can fly. Zeke waited near the back as Nightingale, Shayless, Justice, and the others climbed ahead of him. Her small crew helped most of them on board, and he wasn't halfway up the ladder before the airship took off, lifting suddenly upward. Whoa! Zeke shouted, clinging to the ladder with all his might, locking both legs around one of the rungs. He nearly lost his grip on the rope as it started to swing. Zeke could hear people shouting at him from above, and when he looked up, he saw Nightingale urging him up. He slowly climbed the rest of the ladder and rolled over the railing. Thanks for the rescue, he muttered, slumping to the wood, still shaking all over. Though I wish you'd taken it a little slower at the end. Effie grinned down at him from the helm. If you can't keep up, you get left behind. I like you and all, but not enough to let those monsters grab hold of the rope and pull my baby right out of the sky. Take us to the Amaranthine, Sheila said, pointing, and hurry. Listen, Princess, this is my ship. Effie slammed her and they lurched up again. We're surrounded by a burning city. You don't need to tell me to hurry. Little islands and chunks of floating stone blurred past them, but Effie deftly avoided the debris. They slowed with a lurch after clearing the floating rocks, and Effie raised her chin proudly, looking to Shayless. Fast enough for you, Your Highness? Effie asked. That was great, Shayless commented. Thanks for the rescue. Effie leaned on the controls, trying to look casual. You know, right place, right time and all that. She looked up suddenly, pointing. Looks like there are a bunch of people out on the battlements. Should I set you down there? Abigail and Tyrael were there, flanked by 24 soldiers, watching the city burn. Yes, Sheila said. Pull alongside the wall and let us off. Then find a spot to dock. We might have another job for your ship. Right. Effie turned, banking into the breeze and moving up the length of the wall. But I'm not a warship. I can't go down there and fight for the city. One good hit and we'd be toast. I know, Sheila said, glancing back toward Nightingale. We might need some transportation after this. Zeke hurried off with the others, having to jump the last foot or so as the oppressor started drifting away again, leaving a nauseating drop visible below him as he hopped. Nightingale glided over to them, shoving through the guards and raising her voice to carry over the wind. What the hell have you done? Abigail shouted. We told you about the Aegis Stone. We told you why the Eyrie had to remain closed. She stopped only a few feet away from Shayless, fuming. How the hell did you even destroy it? You better have a goddamn good explanation.
God? All right. Do we have the story flag helping hand? No. Do we have the story flag massacred? No. Is Zephyr in the party? No.
Oh, okay.
But then we continue to another area.
Where would that story like massacred's from?
Right?
Oh, I think it's if we kill Zephyr. I think it's if we kill all of them.
Oh, really?
I think that's the...
Abigail, we didn't do this, Shayless insisted. She put a hand on her friend's arm for a moment before pulling it away. We don't have the power to do something like destroy the Aegis Stone. Abigail sighed, looking toward Shayless. So you didn't destroy the Aegis Stone. That's a relief. I didn't think you'd be that stupid. Yeah, it wasn't us. We were out trying to stop this madness, Shayless frowned. When we saw the barrier fall, we used the chance to find our friend Justice. The person who was responsible paid the price with her life. Well, their death doesn't do us any good, Abigail sighed. Our city still burns. That's why we're here. We came back to help. Nightingale rushed forward, looking between Tyrael and Abigail. Tyrael nodded. You're right. Let's get inside. Tyrael turned away from them and gestured to a nearby stairwell. He led the way as everyone headed into the building. Let's go. We have much to discuss.
Fucking fortress doesn't really do your city a lot of good when the people can't escape into it, when it's floating out separate from the rest of the fucking...
That's also
I mean,
true.
it protects the royal family, but
well,
the civilians are getting murdered.
Well, the civilians aren't people, Devin. Well, my also thing was like, okay, you're protecting this Aegis Stone, which is like this super important thing that keeps like all these demons and monsters down. Mm-hmm. Why is your city not
on
defensive enough to be able? It's like
where was the Aegis Stone? It was like what, in the fucking mountains or something?
It was like in the woods. I think it was in the forest. Yeah. It's like
it had.
Seems like you should have had a contingency plan. Anyway, we continue to fixing this. Boom.
Fixing this. Nightingale had a hard time appreciating the opulence of the Amaranthine throne room, not with the chaos the city was suffering through. The throne room's spectacular open sides only permitted a better view of the devastation. Many of the guards had joined them on their way to the top, weapons alert and watching the night sky for any sign of attack. "There's no chance of holding the city without the Aegis Stone," said one of the guards. "We're evacuating as you ordered, concentrating as many citizens as we can in the Amaranthine." "How is the food situation?" Abigail asked, taking her seat in the dark throne. She didn't sit relaxed in it as she had during the first time Nightingale had been here. She perched on the edge, ready to snap into action at a moment's notice. "Can we survive a siege?" "With respect, Lady Abigail, a siege is the last of our worries. My last casualty report stood at 200, and that was an hour ago. We'll be dead before a siege even starts. This isn't a mindless flood. These creatures have been waiting for their revenge. They fight with coordination. We need to replace the Aegis Stone," Tyrael said, "or any defense we make is doomed." "Remind me again where it came from," Damocles said, looking up at the massive stained glass roof. "Something about a dragon, right?" "Yes," Zeke said. "My parents. They convinced a demon named Rubicant to send them to Arcala. They killed a dragon and used its heart to make the Aegis Stone." Zeke stepped forward. "My dad's dead, and there's no way we can wait for my mom, so that leaves me. Hopefully this demon will still feel, I don't know, some sort of debt to the family, and it'll do for me what it did for them." "Yeah, that's not happening," Shayla's frowned. "Are you kidding? After everything we just went through, you guys aren't ready for Arcala." Tyrael put a hand on Shayla's shoulder and looked around the room. "Shayla, they just survived a trip into the Eyrie. I don't think there's anyone in Alinea more ready than they are. Besides, if Zeke wants to follow in his parents' footsteps, it's his choice."
Ooh, so that's right.
Shayla took a deep breath.
I bet you.
"I can't let you do this alone, at least. I can't let anything happen to you, or Mother would have my head on a pike. Balthazar had many kids, but Lo only had 2. If our families are not going to bond through marriage like everyone wants, we should at least watch each other's backs." Patrick stepped up next to her. "I'll come too." He smiled at her.
Yeah.
"I mean, rarely do we have a good reason to go to Arcala." Abigail rose to her feet in a rush, moving to join them. "I'm coming too. Greyhaven is my city." Tyrael rose behind her, resting one hand on her shoulder. "Abigail, you can't. Greyhaven won't last long without us. As many of us who can need to stay behind. We have to hold out as long as possible. We need to give them enough time to replace the Aegis Stone before we're overrun. If both leaders of Greyhaven suddenly disappeared, things might look bad. Morale couldn't take it. We need to be careful about this. We need as many people here holding the city as possible, especially since..." "Both leaders?" Abigail asked. Tyrael nodded. "You need to take the fastest airship to Kastakov. It's the closest city to us. Ida Zhang could send help. We could raise an army there, maybe bring it back. We can't both be gone. You could bring only 2 or 3 guards. The rest will stay here. We must protect the Amaranthine at all costs. If anything reaches the float core..." "Why are you staying and making me leave? It's your family that runs Kastakov," Abigail asked him curiously. "I'm no damsel in distress who needs protecting." "And I am," Tyrael replied with a smile. Shayla and Patrick shared a look with Abigail, and the 3 stared at Tyrael confused. "Don't you see? My family will have no choice to send help if I'm the one at risk. If you think Yoon Jiang would sit by if he knew I was here, you're crazy." Abigail took a deep breath and nodded, despite looking obviously disappointed. "Yes, you're right." She stepped back and sat in her chair. "Why not just leave?" Damocles asked. Abigail's wings fluttered for a brief moment, and she turned to him with a frown. "The float core. It's keeping the Amaranthine floating. If the float core were to be destroyed, the entire Amaranthine falls, and the city beneath it would be destroyed. Moreover, all the people we're evacuating up here will die. It's not like we could get thousands of people evacuated on the few airships we have. It won't come to that, Shayla said. We'll head to Arcala. You'll get reinforcements, and Tyrael will protect the Amaranthine. We can fix this.
Do the players have the story flag Soul Judgment? No.
Oh, shit.
474.
Soul Judgment.
We don't have, like, any of these, which is wild. So, let me help.
Let me help. Hey, I can help. Patrick spun when he heard Isling's voice.
Oh.
In all the madness, he had all but forgotten she was here. She hurried into the throne room from the transit pad, a pair of guards landing behind her a second later.
I'm ready for a payoff
She
of
tried
this
to dodge out of the
Isling
way,
business.
but they were too fast, grabbing her by both arms and pulling her to a stop. We're sorry, Lord and Lady Zhang, one of them said, bowing. We knew you weren't to be disturbed, but she... Abigail waved them forward. Patrick stepped out to the front of the group, though he wasn't worried about Abigail or Tyrael doing anything unbecoming to his good friend. Isling had not committed a single crime in their city, and they understood the details of what she'd done. They had no reason to use the same violent punishments that might be waiting for her in Romstead. Look at me, Abigail ordered, and Isling obeyed. What do you think you can do for us? You're here as our prisoner, awaiting judgment. If we let you go, who's to say you don't just run off? Isling shrugged. I want a pardon, Lady Abigail. You're short on soldiers. Can you really afford to turn me down? Give me your word, and I'll do anything you ask. I'll fight, so as long as I'm a free woman when the city's safe again. I don't want to run the rest of my life. Tyrael grunted, frowning. Patrick stepped forward. She'll keep her word, Tyrael. Isling got herself mixed up in things she shouldn't have, but she's a good person. She may want a pardon, but I think she'd fight even if you said no. She wouldn't watch innocent people die and not step up. Guards, release her, Tyrael said. Fetch the weapons we confiscated. Tyrael turned his attention back on Isling. You will remain here to fight beside me and protect the float core. If we survive until Shayla's returns with a new Aegis Stone, you will have your pardon. You have to be joking, Remy said. This time Gage was at her side growling. The cat had learned that Isling was some kind of enemy. Isling smiled at her as she was let go. This is bullshit. Remy stopped yelling when Nightingale stepped in front of her. Her first reaction was to tell her friend to go screw herself, to scream that she didn't know what she had gone through because of Isling, but as she turned on her, she abruptly stopped. Nightingale's face was pale and sickly. She had bags under her eyes, and she looked so frail that Remy was afraid that even pulling away would topple her. Please, Nightingale sighed. Her touch was so gentle, so frail, that Remy recognized it then. Her friend was losing her battle. The Malama was winning. Remy took a deep breath, then put on a fake smile. Of course, Night. I'm sorry. Nightingale returned the smile, and Remy could see it was just as fake.
We do not have the story flag, the last of her coteries, so we go on to what's wrong with her. Just so everyone is wondering, this is going to be a full story episode, because we will finish it right now.
Right now.
Well, not like right now, there's more stuff to read, but...
What's wrong with her? Nightingale held on to one of the pillars with one hand to keep herself upright as she watched Tyrael make his way out. She was exhausted, barely conscious, and she wasn't the only one. It was a miracle they had even survived their trip to the Eyrie. Abigail stopped as he reached the edge of the transport pad that would take her down, glancing over her shoulder. What about the rest of you? Nightingale was the first to answer. I'm going with them, obviously. She let go of the pillar, making her way to where Zeke and Shayla stood in the center of the room. The world rushed up to meet her as she dropped to one knee, and everything started swaying. Zeke hurried over, offering a hand and helping her back to her feet. You can barely walk, Tyrael said, watching as Nightingale struggled to right herself. Shayla folded her arms, glaring at Nightingale. Don't lie, Night. The Malama might take complete control at any moment. That's not okay, and it's not the kind of weakness we can afford going into Arcala. You should come with me to Kastikov, Abigail suggested. Zeke's mother Ida may know more about your condition. Even if they don't, You would be safer there if Greyhaven falls. Nightingale didn't hear the rest of the conversation that was going on. The Malama appeared beside her, its horrific outline solidified from shadow, warping around the nearest pillar before passing over Justice's head. I have a proposal, it said, its voice clearer than any other sound in the room. Information you may not have considered. I've got a proposal for you, too, Nightingale said, watching as the Malama drifted over towards the railing, as though it, too, watched the destruction of the city below. She didn't consider whether or not anyone around her could hear her speak. The world around her was gone, and all she could see and hear was the Malama. She threw it a rude gesture. You get out of my body, and I don't send you straight to hell. The Malama laughed, all of its mouths working at once. Each one of them produced a slightly different voice, and they didn't speak in unison. If the Malama was a choir, it was an enormously discordant one. The seeds of my desires are already in your mind, though you do not recognize them. She felt a hand on her shoulder, and she spun around violently. Shayla's face came into focus suddenly. What's going on, sis? Shayla asked, looking concerned. Nightingale blushed, realizing at that moment that every single person in the throne room had seen and heard her. She felt like she was going crazy, and it was obvious that others were thinking it too. It's the Malama, Nightingale admitted. It wants to make an offer. Oh, Shayla let go, smiling slightly. Shayla turned to face where the Malama had been. You can shove whatever offer you are going to make straight up your ass. You might say otherwise if you heard it. The Malama solidified in a bright flash of magic, drawing even more of what little strength Nightingale had left. Nightingale gasped, but before she could fall to her knees, Remy jumped over and grabbed her, holding her upright. All around the room, guards drew their weapons. Abigail jumped to her feet, mouth opening and closing as she stared. Guards! Tyrael shouted. Surround that thing! Won't do any good. Remy put up her hand. We can't hurt it, but the good news is that it won't hurt us either. The guards looked at each other anxiously, but still surrounded the grotesque form of the Malama. The Malama's amorphous shape seemed to drift towards Remy, undulating as it went like the pseudopod of a gigantic amoeba. Even beings as mindless and mechanical as humans can be conditioned to the correct response with enough repetition. Violence between us would serve no purpose. Powerless rulers of this insignificant city. It turned back on Nightingale, all of its eyes suddenly focusing on her. I made an error in judgment, Nightingale. I have treated you as every host I have inhabited before. I imagined you were as weak as they were. Yet you have proven yourself both competent and resilient, traits I did not expect. I would now be honest with you, and expect the same honesty in return. Is that possible? Not from you, Remy growled, holding Nightingale closer. Nightingale's eyes rolled in the back of her head in a fleeting moment of nausea that overtook her. She braced herself on Remy with a shaky hand and turned towards the Malama. Honesty? Have I ever lied to you? The creature's eyes blinked individually as if each eye was a different monster inhabiting the same horrible body. Then it spoke. I suppose not. Consider what I have to say then, and judge my word for yourself. The Malama shrank a little in the air, becoming half of its previous size. Charon did not create me, nor did he enslave me. I chose to serve him because he promised me something no other could. Safety from the great bounty. You have now learned of its dangers, Nightingale. You have seen its enforcers, and the terrible retribution they bring upon those who violate the sanctity of the realms. I have long taken an interest in this world, yet all I have done here has been accomplished in fear and shadow. Charon promised me a body of my own, so that I might remain on Middara forever, hidden from those that mean me harm. I'm sure that's working out great for you, Remy said, venomous. Indeed. The Malama sounded reluctant. Charon is little more than a corpse in a suspended tomb, put there by his enemies, the Anointed. His power has waned tremendously over the last decade. Many of his servants are dead or imprisoned. There is no reason for me to tie my fate to that of a dead god if others can get me what I want instead. Wait. Tyrael lowered his sword. The suspended tomb. You mean the one that's floating off the coast to the south? Oh. That's been there since before Alinea was founded. Yes. Again, the Malama sounded reluctant. The Anointed were more successful than anyone should have been. Zephyr should have failed. He should have been grounded into a bloodstain years ago. Yet that was not the case due to Charon's sentimental personality. All you want is a permanent body, then? Nightingale asked. So you can safely stay on Middara? What could you possibly offer in return? The Malama turned on her again, causing Remy to stumble back. It curled around Nightingale with its many eyes and teeth, as though it were going to swallow her. I'd offer you 2 different things. First, I'd offer you your life. You must realize by now how close I am to claiming your body and mind. This deal would give you the chance to save your life. All you must do is provide me a willing vessel, a body that will accept me, one that is human, one that the great bounty won't suspect. If you provide one, I'll willingly relinquish yours. Nightingale shivered. That was a high price. She couldn't imagine passing on the nightmare of living with the Malamet at someone else. She couldn't imagine any way at all to get a body that wouldn't involve something terrible. But she listened anyway. What's the second thing? She asked. I can tell you where the last piece of the Pontifex is. Nightingale froze. She felt like her heart stopped for a moment as a ray of hope she hadn't felt in ages gripped her. She could almost feel tears welling up behind her eyes. It was possible for them to find the last piece. It was out there. The last piece was somewhere they could find. Nightingale held up a hand and smiled. You have my word, she said. What? Remy moved to try and object, but Nightingale threw her a wild look. You don't get to choose, Nightingale screamed. None of you do. Or does one of you have a better idea? You think I'll live until we get to Greyhaven? I can feel the Malamet. Nightingale began sobbing. I can feel it in my head. I'm losing myself. We don't have time to choose any other option if you want me to live. Then we are agreed. The Malama spoke up softly. Nightingale nodded, ignoring the wicked grin that spread across its many mouths, its fierce teeth flashing at her. It suddenly seemed to shift and expand in the air, back to its normal size. Nightingale felt like she was seeing excitement from the creature for the first time. The final piece of the Pontifex is located in the crypts beneath the white spires. It was my target the night you met my previous host, the Malama said finally. Really? Nightingale swore under her breath, and she wiped at her face with a bare arm. We could have been done already? I suspect that Vault Lord Hographer recognized my intentions and moved the artifact before we arrived the following day.
Wait, what did he say? Who was his target?
The piece of the Pontifex was in the White Crypts at the very beginning of the whole thing. That's why he was there.
Oh, okay.
And I can't remember who Hographer was.
That thing.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah, so he moved it.
Else you might indeed have gotten rid of me. We should already be done with this, Zeke shouted up at the Malama. Damn it, why didn't you say something? The Malama didn't answer. Its outline fizzed, then it vanished with a pop, and one last whisper into Nightingale's mind. Our promise is struck. Remember this bargain, or the stay of your execution will be lifted.
Okay, let's see. We do not have the story flag a new owner. So...
New owner.
I don't even remember seeing some of these.
Yeah.
So then we move right along, baby.
A shaky proposition. Justice shivered, forcing herself to speak up.
There she is.
She hugged her tome a little tighter, as though it was a stuffed doll. If you can get all 3 pieces, I should be able to use them to get the Malama out and seal it into a new body. That's good, Rook said, watching her with obvious concern. But where would we get a body? Justice shook her head. I don't know. That's a different problem. Yeah, people tend to be a little attached to their bodies, Rook said.
Does it have to be
That's
alive?
something we'll definitely need to figure out. Why not just force it out and kill it instead? Remy spat. Well, we need the Pontifex piece in either case. Damocles shook his head, one hand on his hip. So let's just focus on getting it. Suri appeared beside Rook in a flash of violet light, bright enough to overcome the chandelier of glowstones far overhead. She provoked a few stares from Tyrael and Abigail, but no questions. I still remember the path that you took in the White Vaults, Suri said. If you go, Rook, I can help you find it. The sooner we put an end to this, the sooner you can be out of constant danger. She smiled at him, twisted in the air. That's definitely the plan, Rook said, glancing back at Nightingale.
We would smear
I'm a little
those
tired of the
monsters.
danger. Nightingale, Justice and I are going to the vaults. All of you are, Shealis interrupted. For speed's sake, only Zeke, Patrick, and I will head to Arcala. The rest of you go with Nightingale.
Oh,
Damocles
we're
placed a
splitting.
hand on Nightingale's shoulder. She looked up at him, surprised.
2-year time skip. We're gonna come back. We're gonna have our anime glow ups. all the girls, as usual, are gonna just be more voluptuous.
So what was it? It was Patrick and
Patrick, Zeke, and Shayless.
Shaylis are going to Arcala?
Yep.
Okay.
And then everyone else going to the White Spires.
Okay.
We've got this. Whatever this Hografar thing is, he's not the Shadow Lord. We just survived the Eerie. We'll find a way through the vaults. He didn't know how awful Hografar was, nor did he have any idea what going deep into the white vaults of Alinea meant. But
Did Hografar even do anything?
Like, she murdered his previous host instantly.
Oh, okay. And then we ran, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
we ran.
I don't remember if we encountered it.
Nightingale found herself smiling despite that. Damocles looked so optimistic, and she couldn't bring herself to ruin it. What does a Hografar look like anyway? Damocles asked cautiously as he looked around at all the others.
What does it look like?
Rook raised his hand with a grim expression, but Nightingale cut him off with a smile. It looks like an orc from Dungeons and Dragons, she joked. Easy peasy. Let's kick its ass. Damocles
kick its
hyped
ass.
himself while Remy and Rook gave Nightingale a
It's
flash.
not that!
Rook leaned in close. You'll need to tell him that it's actually a horrific murder machine eventually. Sure, Nightingale waved him away. Let me enjoy his optimism for now, though.
Is Zephyr in the party? No. Hell fucking no. He's still alive, though. We did not
He's
kill him.
killed.
He's been pink misted. So then we go to... okay.
We could have straight up iced his ass.
Zephyr?
Who are you? Effie came up the transport platform like a blur, shooting into the throne room and stumbling right into Tyrael. Effie righted herself quickly, bowing and backing away. Sorry, I didn't see where I was going. Tyrael frowned at her. Who the hell are you? He reached down, trying to brush the grime off his
Commoner.
clothes. I'm sure my guards had good reason to let you up here. Yeah, she grinned proudly. My name is Effie Grand. I run the ferry through the Middle Passage. I also saved all their lives. Effie pointed back at the rest of the group. You won't find a better pilot anywhere in Alinea.
She's my favorite.
Great, Tyrael said blandly, waving her away. You may go. Wait, Zeke shoved his way over to her. We need an airship. We actually need Effie's airship. She goes through the Middle Passage, exactly where we need to be. I'll need our own ship to make it to Kastikoff in time, Abigail said. Eyes narrowed as she looked back to Effie. I'm sure you want extra compensation for this. It's not just a ferry trip. Zeke intends to confront the lesser demon Rubicant directly, and the rumors about that demon are pretty verified. You don't need to tell me, Effie raised an eyebrow. I know more about that passage than almost anyone. He knows what I want. Effie motioned to Zeke. He can tell you exactly what sort of compensation I'm looking for. Zeke looked confused for a moment, until he remembered the card in his pocket. He slowly pulled it out. It was crumpled and stained, torn in a few places as well. Standing in front of Effie, he felt embarrassed for having destroyed it so thoroughly. She didn't comment.
I'm sure you understand.
Instead, she snatched it from his hands and darted forward. Effie thrust the card in Tyrael's face. I want this, she said. Tyrael took it and blinked a few times, trying to smooth the card out. You want Abraxas cards for a dangerous flight into the Middle
If
Passage?
someone ruined my
Effie's
precious
face
trading card, I would have killed it. If it was like...
Effie, please. Please, I fought the Shadow Lord. I don't care who you fought. That card...
Just be quiet, Zeke. Shit'll be over soon.
I'm excited to annoyed. I want what's on the card, you dope. She grabbed it from him and folded her arms. You want a battleship? Tyrael looked shocked. Effie grinned wildly as she saw the surprised dawn on his face. You've got a prince looking for a demon, all to save a city that's on fire because it's being attacked by hordes of monsters. One airship upgrade seems a teeny price to pay for such a huge favor. Tyrael looked at Zeke, who just shrugged. Okay, Tyrael said after a moment. I mean, if you pull this off, why not? Effie jumped up and pumped her fist into the air. Yeah, buddy! She grabbed Zeke and forced him into a violent hug before skipping away back towards the transport
Zeke just
platform.
gets so much poo.
I'll be ready to launch in a jiff. Zeke looked slightly traumatized by the event, and glanced at Tyrael like he was going to be in trouble. He just patted him on the back. Good luck with that, cousin, Tyrael said. He moved past Zeke to hug Shayless and Patrick. Abigail hurried over and hugged them as well, waving at everyone else. Good luck. Be safe. Greyhaven is depending on you.
But I don't really like Greyhaven. Okay, then we go to all the way down. Boom.
Official airship. The oppressor launched without fanfare. Nightingale found herself a place to lean off the railing and watch the city below, getting a good look at the chaos she'd been at least partially responsible for causing. Most of the fires had died down, though there was an outer quarter of the city where they raged completely out of control. The engines, the wind, and the altitude covered up the sound of battle as it began to disappear into the distance. The smell of fire had a twinge of flesh to it. How many people are going to die stuck in their homes? She smelled something else on the air. Cigarette smoke? Nightingale looked up and found Zeke was watching from over the railing beside her. He puffed on a cigarette. I must really be out of it. I didn't even notice your stank, Nightingale sighed. Forever a hater. Zeke smiled as he made his way over. It's okay. I won't tell people that you secretly like the smell of menthols. Nightingale rolled her eyes. Hey, Zeke? Yeah?
Fuck you!
Little excited?
Jeez.
Nightingale hesitated as she asked.
God.
To fight a dragon? Hell yeah! Zeke took a long drag and puffed out as much smoke as he could. Nightingale glanced up, meeting his eyes. No, I mean, you get to follow in your dad's footsteps a little. This is kind of the first time you get to see something he's done firsthand. Zeke was quiet for a moment, taking a few more drags before answering. Are you excited to get rid of the Maluma? He finally asked. That's a different question, Nightingale argued. Zeke shook his head.
You are one now.
Not really. He took one last long breath, then flicked the burning ember over the edge of the
Into
ship.
her face.
Together, they watched the faint glow fade away. We're both facing these huge, overwhelmingly personal tasks. Maybe for Patrick and Shayless, going to kill a dragon is just about saving Greyhaven. Or maybe it's about their allegiance to Abigail and Tyrael. Those four obviously have history. But you get a chance to find out a little more about what your dad went through, Nightingale said. You get to connect with him, even though you'll never get to meet him. Yeah.
Thanks for the
Zeke
reminder.
agreed. And for Remy, getting the Pontifex will help you out. And Damocles wants revenge. But none of us can know what having the Malum is like. None of us can know what being free of that means. These are just two really heavy things for us to handle. Yeah, sure, they're heavy in different ways, but they're heavy and exciting, Nightingale said quietly. Zeke grinned and put an arm around her shoulder. He looked into her eyes and could see that she still had that spunky spark he loved about her.
Aw.
It seemed the Maluma was relenting, like it said it would. Hell yeah, they're exciting, he said with a smile. Scary as shit, but exciting too. What about her? Nightingale asked, looking behind Zeke. He turned and saw Justice looking out over the horizon. She had her eyes closed as wind whipped against her.
Yeah, she's just like so distraught from the torture she just went through. And Zeke's like, I get to go on an
Kill a
adventure.
dragon. I have a new blonde girlfriend who flies an airship. I'm like this depressing bitch over here. She keeps hopping from chick to chick.
To be honest, Nightingale, between you and me, she's kind of a buzzkill now.
Fucking buzzkill. I don't know what the fuk I was on about earlier.
just-
I don't know. I was in a phase, I guess. I was in the goth chicks.
She doesn't feel authentic anymore.
Short hair,
God.
messing it up more than it already
What an
was.
asshole.
Nightingale and Zeke watched as Justice thumbed at the second piece of the Pontifex hanging on a strap at her chest. What about her? Zeke asked, smiling. Do you think she's going to be okay? Nightingale turned
It's
her
not my
attention
problem.
back to Zeke. I mean, we don't know what the Shadow Lord put her through. She's strong, Zeke assured her. Look at what she's already gone through. Hell, look at what we've all just been through. She'll be okay, Night. I hope so, Nightingale sighed, a sense of melancholy overcoming her. A voice suddenly called to them, and they turned to see Effie bouncing up behind them. Hey, we're getting to the point of no return, like super dangerous, scary territory. You sure you don't want to back out? Do you? Zeke asked. What I want is my battleship, Effie answered. So I don't want you to bitch out.
Oh.
Zeke waved a dismissive hand.
God, okay.
Yeah. Effie put a hand on her hip. I'm serious, Zeke Jong. You better survive. No Zeke means no battleship. Our mission is clear, Captain Effie Grand, Zeke said, saluting as dramatically as he could. Full speed ahead. Effie didn't look amused. All right. Rest while you can. It's going to get real dangerous soon.
You saved Justice and retrieved the second piece of the Pontifex.
Hey!
When determining the force of a spell, if a skull is rolled, your spell still fails to affect the target, but you are not dealt any magic damage.
Oh, okay. Nice.
So you can kind of freely empower. Oh, that's really good now with that, where I get free empowers. All injured party members are no longer injured. Justice has been saved. She is no longer unselectable.
Hey.
And then we go to... What?
Nothing, go ahead.
Oh. All the way down to the bottom. Down.
That was the last one.
Last one.
Finish. Heart of a Dragon. Nightingale found her sister near the bow of the ship, leaning heavily on the railing and letting one hand drag through the clouds in front of them. Shayla glanced up briefly.
Oh, wow.
Hey, sis, Shayla said. She smiled an exhausted grin. Still awake, I see. Yeah. Nightingale leaned beside her, staring out into the night sky.
Horns look super
There was no
heavy.
more city beneath them, just endless cracks of unfriendly rock lost in the clouds below.
I was about to say, I'm like, God damn.
Fucking
it's like,
dummy over
Shayla's,
here.
Jesus, you got enough cake for the rest of us?
Do you really think this Arcala thing can work? Shayla shrugged. I've heard Ida tell stories about it. Not in detail, but she hesitated. It won't be easy. I mean, it's going to be as hard as it sounds. Convincing a demon to send us into another world to kill a dragon and bring its heart back? I mean, it's insane. She looked at Nightingale, and her eyes softened. What about you? Your trip doesn't sound much easier. Nightingale shrugged back at her, staring out into the clouds. The Malum is keeping true to its word so far. It hasn't bothered me at all. She hugged the railing and leaned over to look down. As long as it keeps doing so, I think having to deal with Hografar is less intimidating than a demon or a dragon. At least we've seen it before. You guys are going in blind. Shayla shook her head. We'll make it through. I'm starting to think our family's legacy is one of dumb luck rather than cleverness or sheer power, she chuckled. Nightingale let Shayla's pull her into a hug. When we get through all of this, you're getting into the Demiurge, no questions asked. Shayla smiled, stepping back. I don't think any of us could have handled the Malama the way you have. That's worth more than any adventuring, scheming, or training that our family takes pride in. Nightingale's tired eyes moved, not focusing on anything in particular. I haven't thought about the Demiurge in quite a while. She shook her head. I wonder how Khufu is doing. Do you think he even knows I'm gone? Shayla shook her head. That dolt? He followed you from Earth, didn't he? I'd be surprised if he isn't hot on our heels. Yeah. Nightingale stared out over the crags.
I know he had
the
bigger
sky was a
wings.
bright orange, and it was hard to think she was witnessing a whole city burning to the ground only moments ago. After confronting a Shadow Lord, traveling to the Eyrie, facing Alana and the Malama, the Demiurge was going to be a breeze.
And that is the end of Act 1.
It's over.
Lots of story.
It's done.
It's finished. All right, everyone. So that was the finale for Act 1. I really hope you enjoyed. This took a lot of effort for Devin and I. But not quite over. Click the eye to go to the discussion for Chapter 5 as well as the overall campaign. And other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.